The job market in China is tough right now. I have a junior who's a minor internet celebrity. He studied in the UK for both his undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. After coming back to China, he's now delivering food. We went to the same school in the UK. After finishing his undergrad, he got into the University of Glasgow for his master's. We recently caught up to talk about our current situations. My first job was selling insurance at Ping An. I earned around 3,000 to 4,000 yuan a month on average. My second job was more related to my field since I have a master's in education. I tried teaching but quickly found out that without a teaching certificate, many places wouldn't hire me. So I ended up teaching young kids at a community center. I worked there for a month, including some extra hours, and earned 4,600 yuan. I then tutored high school students in English, getting 100 yuan per hour, which is very cheap. Many saw it as a bargain. I quit that job because, for 2 hours of tutoring, I only earned 200 yuan. Working for a full month only got me about 100 yuan per day. But once school started, my students also went back to school, leaving me unemployed. With so much pressure and such low pay, I decided to deliver food. I joined a delivery service for the Shaoxiong supermarket. On my busiest day, I worked from 9 a.m. to midnight and earned 310 yuan. In the delivery station, there were other international students who graduated from UK universities. I used to be positive and optimistic, but this has worn me down. You can see all these white hairs on my head. I didn't have a single one before.
The experience of this international student reflects the challenges and pressures of China's current job market. Despite having a postgraduate degree, finding a job remains difficult. Recently, a video interview with this UK graduate was shared widely on Douyin. In the interview, he explained that after returning to China, he took on multiple jobs but was unsuccessful. He ended up delivering food, earning around 4,000 yuan. However, the person who posted the video updated on September 12th that the interview was recorded some time ago, and the interviewee, Tony, is no longer delivering food. He is now delivering cement at a construction site. This video sparked heated discussions online. One person commented, "My cousin has an undergraduate degree from Chongqing Jiaotong University and a master's from the University of Washington. She even did a year as an exchange student at New York University. She's been back in China for 3 months and still hasn't found a job." Another said, "It's so competitive in China. A client in China wanted to recruit me, but when they found out I graduated from a U.S. university, they thought my degree was too low. Now I feel like finding a job here is quite easy." Someone else shared, "I've experienced it all. I have a master's degree from Ukraine. I worked as a security guard, delivered food, and did day jobs. I finally chose to go to Russia, where I now earn over 10,000 yuan a month, plus project shares and equity shares. After getting beaten down by society, you learn your value and find your path. You can also choose to go to the US or Australia. It's easier to earn money there." Another commented, "I met a student who studied in the UK during my trip back to China in 2016. He was selling fried ice cream on the street. I knew from the start that I couldn't go back to China. You can't earn back the cost of studying abroad. Many of us stayed here, either on high-tech visas, entrepreneur visas, or through marriage. Those who wanted to stay did." Others added, "Why go back to China? Isn't it better to work abroad? And that's 3 times more than the income of over 600 million people." There was a time when being an international student held a lot of weight. Those who returned to China often earned higher salaries than their peers, and many companies considered them top priority for high-paying positions. Back then, Chinese international students, whether they stayed abroad or returned to China, earned enviable incomes. Many parents went to great lengths and spared no expense to send their children overseas for education. But now, with China's slowing economy and rising unemployment rates, it's becoming increasingly difficult for international students to find jobs back home. According to Chinese media reports, it used to be relatively easy for returning international students to find jobs that paid over 30,000 yuan a month. Now, even earning 10,000 yuan a month is challenging. For example, Alex studied high school, university, and postgraduate in the US, spending a total of 5 million yuan. His undergraduate major was architecture, and for his master's, he attended the Rhode Island School of Design, one of the world's top design schools. In 2020, Alex returned to China and went through 3 rounds of interviews before landing an engineering job at a state-owned enterprise. While the job and the company are quite good, after deducting Social Security, housing fund, and income tax, his take-home pay is only around 7,000 yuan. Even with the year-end bonus, it's just the average salary in Shanghai. There was also a girl who once shared on a program that her parents spent 2 million yuan to send her abroad for her studies, but after returning to China, she only earns 4,000 yuan a month. She did the math and realized that even if she could save half of her salary, it would take her 100 years to pay back the cost of her overseas education. Her salary is completely out of proportion to her tuition fees, so her relatives often mock her, making sarcastic remarks. You could tell from the way she spoke that she deeply regretted her decision to study abroad. Professor Zhu Hong from Nanjing University mentioned in an interview that many students spend millions on studying abroad, only to come back and earn around 5,000 yuan a month. This extremely low return on investment is causing a decline in the trend of studying abroad. While many elite students returning from overseas aim to start businesses and pursue wealth, a large number of returning students report earning just 4,000 or 5,000 yuan a month, which is far below their expectations. So, why is it becoming increasingly difficult for international students to find jobs back home? Analysts point to three main reasons. 1. Challenges facing foreign companies. Foreign companies used to be the top choice for international students because of their attractive benefits and respectable positions. These companies were eager to hire international graduates with few requirements regarding their school or major. Simply being an international student was enough, as they wanted talent with a global perspective. It was easier for international students to get hired by foreign companies compared to graduates from prestigious universities like the 985 or 211 projects. Back then, just being an international student meant you'd get picked by various foreign firms without having to send out countless applications. However, in recent years, many foreign companies have begun to leave China or reduce their operations there. Internships have become rare, and some even require payment to get a referral. The demand for international students has decreased, leading to a less promising job outlook compared to before. The second major destination for international students was private enterprises. These companies once eagerly sought international graduates to seek fresh perspectives and new technologies, especially before 2010. But as small and medium-sized enterprises faced management and operational issues, advanced management systems didn't often work well in these businesses. Many private enterprises found it unproductive and eventually returned to traditional methods that suited China's domestic context. As a result, the image of international students declined, and they were no longer seen as highly desirable. Now, private companies are less attracted to international students, often viewing them as lacking practical skills and adaptability. Opportunities for international students to pursue civil service positions have also dwindled. In the past, their global perspective made them favorable candidates. However, the current civil service system now favors graduates from prestigious Chinese universities, and the advantage of being an international student has weakened. The acceptance rate for international students in civil service exams has become less favorable, leading many to believe that this path is not very promising. Some analysts suggest that the best path for international students is no longer traditional employment, but entrepreneurship or engaging in international business. With their bilateral perspectives, they can bridge the gap between the domestic and international markets. Whether it's starting a business or entering cross-border e-commerce, international students can leverage their unique strengths to accumulate wealth. Even if entrepreneurship isn't an option, another viable path is to stay abroad, secure residency, and switch to a less competitive career track. Some people believe that many Chinese international students face disadvantages when job hunting in China, mainly due to a lack of work experience, limited understanding of the market and industry, and mismatched fields of study. Certain majors may be in high demand abroad but have limited opportunities in China. Additionally, international students may not be familiar with China's recruitment processes and interview styles, creating an information gap that further complicates their job search. Another factor is the cultural gap between China's party-centric work culture and that of other countries. Many students choose to study abroad to experience life and culture outside of China. After spending 3 to 4 years overseas, they might find it challenging to adapt to the more restrictive work environment in China upon their return. With the growing trend of studying abroad in previous years, many parents have blindly sent their children overseas, creating a mixed pool of international students. Studying abroad shifted from being rare to being common, resulting in a wide range of student quality. The status of an international student has lost its traditional prestige. An HR professional from a large company in Hangzhou once said, "International students today are like what postgraduate students used to be, or even earlier, like university graduates, a dime a dozen. In our company, having an international background doesn't offer much of an advantage." With the rapid increase in the number of students studying abroad, the quality has become mixed, so it's not surprising that the value of an international background has diminished. Many international students simply pay their way through to get a degree, and some are just privileged kids. That's why they lack competitiveness when they return. Kitty, the head of recruitment for the photo editing software company PhotoGrid, mentioned in an interview that in the past, international students were scarce and highly sought after. But now, with a larger pool of returnees, companies have more choices. Kitty explained that her company currently has a workforce of several hundred, with international students making up about 10 to 20% of internships and new graduate hires. In recent years, the company's needs have shifted. They used to prefer hiring international students to work locally. Now, with increased acceptance of remote work, they value international students' global perspective and understanding of local markets. While they once focused more on educational background, they now prioritize comprehensive skills and practical experience, such as relevant project experience, problem-solving abilities, and leadership and teamwork skills. Moreover, the number of Chinese international students returning to work in China tripled in 2023. According to a 2024 LinkedIn report, 84% of Chinese international students chose to return to China for job hunting last year. This has intensified competition among international students. In January, Chen Zhiwen, a member of the Academic Committee on the China Education Development Strategy Society, released a research report showing that in recent years, the number of students studying abroad from well-known science and engineering universities such as the University of Science and Technology of China, Northwestern Polytechnical University, and Beihang University has significantly declined, even dropping by 2/3. The data also shows that China is no longer the top source of international students in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. Now the top source is India. According to the 2023 Open Doors report from the U.S., the number of Chinese students studying in the U.S. has declined for 4 consecutive years, with only 290,000 students in 2023, a 20% drop compared to pre-pandemic levels. In contrast, the number of Indian students studying in the U.S. has increased by 35%. Deputy Director of the Organization Department at Tsinghua University, Zhang Chao, told the paper that before the pandemic, about 15% of Tsinhua's undergraduate, master's, and doctoral students went abroad. In 2023, this figure had dropped to around 8%. Zhang believes that the change in the rate of studying abroad in 2020 was influenced by several factors. First, the pandemic affected students' ability to go abroad. Second, changes in international relations played a role. For students in science and engineering, especially those applying to sensitive fields like computer science, obtaining U.S. visas has become more difficult, leading to a decline in the proportion of students going abroad. Before the pandemic, 70% of Tsinghua students who went abroad chose the U.S. After the pandemic, this number has dropped to 50%, with the National University of Singapore and similar institutions becoming the most popular choices. Sanlian Life Weekly observes that many Chinese families are now experiencing a decline in income, making the cost of studying abroad increasingly difficult to afford. Many families have lost the ability and willingness to make significant sacrifices to send their children overseas. The primary goal of studying abroad is to secure better job opportunities and income. When the return on this investment diminishes, many choose to forego it. In recent years, with China's economic downturn, the real estate crisis, widespread business closures, and rising unemployment, more and more Chinese international students are facing a cutoff in financial support from their parents. In March of this year, Elle Men reported the story of Jay, a wealthy second-generation student from China, who faced financial cutoff from her family. Jay, originally from Anhui, came from a well-off family that owned a factory. She had always enjoyed a leisurely life while studying abroad. However, in 2022, her family's business suffered a severe blow. Jay had to support herself to continue her PhD studies in the UK. To ease her family's financial burden, she started taking steps to support herself. First, she moved out of her single apartment to a shared one. Then, she began searching for various part-time jobs to cover her living and tuition costs. She targeted other wealthy international students, bypassing agencies to offer services like essay writing, proofreading, and editing. She also provided spoken English practice sessions. To earn more money, Jay even applied as a waitress and bartender. From living a life of comfort to fending for herself, Jay sees this as life experience. Her situation is not unique. Wang, a Chinese student in his junior year in the United States, told media that he now shares a room with others, cooks for himself every day, and has applied for financial aid. Wang's father was in the building materials business, with an annual family income of several million yuan. However, things went downhill after 2020, and his father is now listed as a defaulter. The family can barely give him a few tens of thousands of yuan each year, while his tuition costs alone are about 60 to 70,000 US dollars annually, not including living expenses. Two of Wang's friends had to return to China due to similar financial cutoffs. One, a student from Guangdong, was just 1 year away from graduating, but returned to China in 2023. He said his family was in real estate, earning over 100 million yuan a year, but then they went bankrupt, owing several hundred million in debt. They needed large amounts of funding to construct buildings, but for a time, banks wouldn't lend. They couldn't get low-interest loans and had to resort to high-interest private loans. This led to various problems, and when the developers ran off, causing the situation. Meng, a Chinese entrepreneur in the United States, said, "Financial cutoffs for international students are quite common. It's totally normal. Many of my child's classmates had to return midway through their sophomore or junior years because their families' businesses collapsed and they couldn't continue their studies." Yu, a Chinese student in Canada, stated that most international students come from middle-class or upper-middle-class families, with annual incomes ranging between 100,000 and 300,000 yuan. He said, "There are various reasons why middle-class families send their children abroad. Some want to get a diploma. Others want them to experience a different life. Some feel the pressure of studying in China is too high, and a portion wants to purify their children's thoughts." Yu believes that the 3-year pandemic had a severe impact on families running small businesses. The impact on those working in government institutions wasn't small either, as many civil servants have experienced pay cuts. The extent to which international students are affected depends on the financial situation of their parents. While part-time jobs are an option, they come with time limits. In Canada, for example, students can only work 20 hours a week, which doesn't allow them to earn much. If parents' finances are cut off, students can scrape by through frugality and part-time work. But if not, they have no choice but to return home.